Sometimes I'm right, and I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in my song. The butcher, the banker, the drummer, and then makes no difference what group I'm in. I am everyday people. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter from deep in the bowels of our underground lair. Batten down the hatches. Is it the end of the Republic? You're just going to have to tune in and find out. Welcome.
Well, yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I know that song like the back of my hand.
Yeah?
And I have no clue who sings it. It's kind of like when you hear like some elevator music or something and you've heard it 1,000 times and you don't know who sings it.
Yeah, well.
I mean, Everyday People, that's the song.
Yes.
But I don't know who sings it.
Sly and the Family Stone.
Well, I don't know nothing about Sly's kidney stones, but I would have never guessed that. I don't know any idea. Sly to me was in Rocky, so I don't know any idea who that is.
No.
Am I supposed to know them?
Yeah.
You thought I'd get that?
I wasn't sure, but that's an old 70s tune.
All right. Well, so, Jay.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something right now.
Okay. I'm going to listen.
Today, it's time once again for history lesson.
Oh, crap.
And I'm going to be honest here in telling you that you have a chance to get all of these.
I have a chance every time, but
no, you don't.
It's not a good chance.
No, you don't. I mean, as soon as you don't have a chance, okay? Sorry, you just haven't yet. We've played this game maybe 10 times. You played it on me once, okay? Yes. And I didn't get them all. You ain't going to get them all either. It's hard to think on the spot.
It is.
But we've got to the end of January, early February. I'm gonna go out a little ways because we're not going to play history lesson again until probably after our 200th episode, which will be coming up soon.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm going to start with. Significant date. January 20th, 1937. Something happened on that date in history. American history.
American history.
For the first time.
We were not quite yet in World War II.
That doesn't count as part of a right answer.
I know.
You're right.
I'm processing
You're
this in my head.
Loud,
yes.
I know.
Because if I think in silence, it's really boring radio.
That's true. Start humming or something, and maybe you and I can sing a duet while you think.
Yes. So 37. That would have been
between 36 and 38. Yeah. No, I'm kidding.
It would have been FDR's 12th term.
You're getting warmer.
Yeah. Let me. 37. Is that when we had the recession within the recession? Or, sorry, depression in the depression? Or was that later? That was around then. That was...
The Roosevelt recession?
Yeah.
It came about 6 months later.
6 months. That wasn't... Not
close.
Not bad, but it wasn't...
FDR, I'm going to give you 1/4 of a point so far.
Let's say it's when he implemented the whole Blue Eagle stuff.
That happened in his first term. Oh. Here, let me just say this. Yeah. You're close. January 20th, 1937 was when President Roosevelt was inaugurated for his second term. Now, the significance of that was that that was the first time since the 20th Amendment had passed. March 4th had previously been the date for the inauguration, which FDR took the first time in 1933. So he became the last and the first to do March 4th to January 20th. So that's the significance of that day. Probably the most harmless thing President Roosevelt ever did.
Probably. Yeah.
How about this? I'll put it more in your wheelhouse.
Okay.
We're going to these are more modern today. Okay, I'm not going back to the Civil War. I'm not going back to, Lyndon Carlson's service in Manila or something back in the turn of the century. January 22nd.
Yes.
1973.
Ooh.
What happened on that date?
I was not born yet.
Now, there's a couple possibilities that you can totally think of here, but I'm being very specific here.
Well, it's definitely not an inauguration because that's January 20th.
Yeah, it was the 2-day anniversary of President Nixon's second term.
Yes.
I guess technically that's the right answer. Off the subject, you ever see the Cheers where Cliff is on Jeopardy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
anyway, you know how he knew every worthless fact and Well, so for Final Jeopardy, he doesn't know the answer, so he writes, "Who are boom, 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 these 3 people?"
Yeah.
And his answer is 3 people who've never been in my dining room or something like that. And he tried to claim that was a right answer. Hey, it's a right answer. That's kind of one of those answers.
Was that the day that they filed articles of impeachment on Nixon?
No, that happened. Actually, I don't believe that ever.
Or no, they
never
didn't
came
actually
to a vote.
File it, did they? Let me retract that. Was that the day he resigned?
No, that was in 1974.
74.
August 9th.
I guess that would be silly to resign 2 days after you're inaugurated, but
I don't know that the Watergate story had even broke by then.
Like I say, I wasn't alive. I don't remember it.
Yeah, but you read microfiche, so we know that. All right, Jay, are you giving up here?
Yes.
Okay. That was the day the Roe v. Wade decision was handed down from the Supreme Court.
That's right.
I actually speculated that was the end of the Vietnam War. It wasn't. But the Vietnam War, officially, our involvement ended 5 days after that on January 27th. But yes, the 22nd, in a 7-2 decision, Roe v. Wade came down from our wonderful Supreme Court.
Sad day in American history.
A terrible day in American history. One of the worst days in my book.
Yes.
And one of the most, I think the Dred Scott decision, Plessy v. Ferguson. Yep. I mean, you got to put them at some of the top worst legal decisions in this nation's history. Okay, let's put it more in your wheelhouse.
Okay.
You should remember this. January 26th, 1998.
Ooh, January 26th, 1998. I was alive at that point.
Let's hope.
I may not have been awake, but I was alive. 98, you said? 98. What was I doing in 98? I was graduating from... No, I already graduated from college. Meaning that I was probably... Let's see, I just moved down here.
Jay, I'm going to give you a hint. The answer's not about you. I'm kidding.
That's how I try to remember historical things. Like when I was... I
guess I do that too.
What was I doing? And what, where was I in my life?
I kind of remember where I was around this time. I'm not sure it was on this day, but I would just turn 21, and I was in Vegas for the Packers-Broncos Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That was, I remember, I won about $300 betting on that game. I skipped school on Monday to fly home with all my winnings. Skipped a call. I was at North Hennepin at that time, so yeah. That's when I was. So I don't know if it was that date, but it was very close to that.
So the answer isn't John Elway won his first Super Bowl.
No, that is not the right answer.
I don't know.
That was when you heard a very famous speech that day. I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Yeah.
Miss Lewinsky, I never told anyone to lie, not a single time, never. And I need to go back to work for myself. I mean, the American people. That was that speech in the Roosevelt Room that day. Okay, 2 more.
All right, since I'm doing so well.
Yes, and I really thought you had a chance today. How about we'll put it back in your wheelhouse?
Okay.
Not quite. January 30th, late great 1968.
January 13th,
30th.
January 30th, 1968. 1968. Is that the day Bobby Kennedy was shot?
That was June 5th.
Oh, crap. Right year, though.
Right year. It was not MLK either. That was in April.
That was in April, yeah. I would have guessed that had I thought that was the case. Oh, goodness. Oh, 1968.
Okay, Jay, I'll give you a hint.
Yeah.
What was the country involved in 1968?
Well, we were in Vietnam.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So was that the day we found out about the secret war, like in Cambodia?
Okay, close. That was 1970.
Okay.
That was the beginning of what was called the Tet Offensive.
Oh, yes.
I know my father actually got there in like April.
Okay.
Right after that, the Tet Offensive allegedly had 3 phases to it. It actually lasted all the way until August. Probably the bloodiest time of the Vietnam War was in 1968. But that was where the North Vietnamese, aided by, of course, our communist friends,
yes,
and supplied by them, launched the Tet Offensive, which pretty much, that was probably the height of the Vietnam War at that time. All right, I got one more.
All right.
This is really in your wheelhouse. I'm going to be really disappointed if you don't get this one. February 3rd, 1959.
How am I going to... 1959, huh? Mm-hmm. 1959. February 3rd, 1959.
By the way, so far you have a Detroit Tigers batting average today.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's still better than Pat Putnam, so we're okay.
Yep. We're going to give you your Denny Hawking so far.
Okay. So probably has something to do with music. 53. Is that when the plane went down with Big Bopper and Richie Valenzuela?
The music died. Yep. I told you you'd get that one.
See?
Yes, that would be Buddy Holly, Richie Valens.
Even a blind squirrel.
His real name,
yes.
Buddy Holly, and a pilot named Roger Peterson took off from Clear Lake, Iowa, and crashed 6 minutes after takeoff, killing all 4 on board. So, music's first tragedy, you think?
No.
Well, was it like the first plane crash tragedy?
That's probably true.
I mean, you had Patsy Cline right after that, and Hank Williams had died in 52, I think.
Yeah, not from a plane.
No, he died from a few too many
Skinner didn't
Jack
happen
Daniels.
Until much later.
Yeah, 78 or something like that. But one of the first, so one of the first, and the whole story of how that winter dance party. If you ever, VH1 used to have something called Behind the Music. I don't know if you ever saw any of those, but and they had a few things. Waylon Jennings was still alive then, and a few others, and about how they ended up on the plane. It's just so sick. It's just so terrible that the plane was chartered for Buddy Holly, Tom Alsop, and Waylon Jennings, which were the Crickets, which are his guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Bopper and Valens kind of cajoled their way on the plane through coincidences. Tommy Alsop flipped a coin, and Richie Valens won. He went on the plane, and Big Bopper was on the winter dance party, and he was had the flu, and asked if he could take Waylon Jennings' place. And there's a famous, Jennings tells the story, and of course he's passed away a while back, of that Buddy Holly walked up to him and said, "So you're not flying with us tonight, huh?" Jennings says, No, JP's not feeling well, and I'm going to let him go in my place. And Buddy Holly said, "Well, I hope your bus freezes up." And Waylon Jennings said, "Well, I hope your plane crashes."
Did he actually say that?
According to Jennings, that's the truth.
My goodness.
So not the best. You wonder why Whalen had a little problem with, booger sugar.
Yeah.
That might have perpetuated
if he had caught that plane, though, we never would have had the good old boys.
We never would have had that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just the things. We talked about Washington crossing the Delaware and what would or wouldn't have happened. It's just kind of incredible when you think about it. Yes. You got one, Jay, and I gave you a quarter of a point. I'm grading on that Minneapolis curve again for FDR, but we'll play again after we hit 200 episodes.
Can't wait. Counting the days already.
All right.
Yes.
Jay, into our normal stuff. By the way, today, Minnesota rolled out that vaccine for people over 65. What? Boy.
Yeah.
It was a subject. I got to give Governor Walz credit. He's turned Operation Warp Speed into Operation Warp Turtle.
Warped record.
Yeah, yeah, Twitter wasn't too kind to it today.
No.
But I got a good chuckle reading everybody's comments. But I'll tell you what, it's the perfect, it's not what we're talking about here, but it's the perfect cluster blank waiting to happen. You've got high demand, minimal supply, and government bureaucracy. I mean, what could possibly go wrong with that combination? I mean, nothing. No way anything could go wrong there. I mean, why not put it into private hands somehow? Mm-hmm. I mean, why are Pfizer and Moderna, why are they turning over their doses to the government?
I don't know. That's part of the deal.
The government's paying for it. Yeah. I mean, that's probably why, but it's kind of like, okay, you know what? You can pay for it. I'll tell you what, we'll take care of the delivery. We'll save you the trouble. All right.
Yes.
I mean, I just don't get that. You can reimburse us later, but we'll get it to everybody. It's kind of like wanting to get a Happy Meal and having to call the government to, hey, I'm hungry now. I'm not hungry 4 days from now. So I'll call up the CDC and they'll send me a Happy Meal next Sunday, rather than just having the place do it themselves.
Right.
It's just awful. Anyway, speaking of awful, speaking of dumb ideas.
Yes.
St. Paul. Need I say more?
No, not really. Good night, folks.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Hey, it's been fun. Give this episode 5 stars.
Yes.
Could have said one word. I could have said Minneapolis.
Yeah, that's true, too.
But that's more syllables. So that feels like more than one word. St. Paul. Mm-hmm. Jay, enlighten the folks. What the hell's going on in that city right now? Now I know Minneapolis and St. Paul are having like an incompetence concert here. It's like they're trying to outdo. I mean, you got a friend of yours, Rebecca Knocker, on the council. I mean, why don't you call her up? You being the broadcast journalist you are, why didn't you do some digging there?
I'm the broadcast journalist.
Well, I mean, I know you want a neck or knocker, so why don't you tell? I'm just kidding. No, you're the broadcast. No, I'm just saying. Once again, unanimously, there's always great dissent on the St. Paul City Council. There's always a variety of ideas. Mm-hmm. All ideas are welcome as long as you agree with them.
That's true.
So we had a unanimous resolution saying what? Jay, what over on the east side?
They are going to create a slavery reparations commission.
Now, who's going to be on that? Well, you think it's not predetermined who's going to be on that?
Maybe not specifically, but generally.
Yeah, they've got the boxes to check. Right. They've got to, put on X amount of this and X amount of that, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And this commission is there to do what? Or this task force, whatever you want to call it, is there to do what exactly?
Well, it starts with an apology. according to
what their taxes are too high.
No, for historic wrongs like the enslavement of people at Fort Snelling, including Dred Scott, which we talked about was a terrible decision. But here's the thing: because of that, and you know, in Minnesota, I mean, we're a northern state. You know, we weren't really a slave state, but yet we're going to pay reparations or we're going to pay restitution, if you will, to people that were never in slavery but feel like they had their opportunities cut short because their ancestors were slaves.
Isn't there a statute of limitations on that? I mean, you know, if you wanted to, you know, sue someone for fraud or something like that, you couldn't sue debt. I mean, you could sue somebody's estate, I guess. But,
yeah.
I mean, you couldn't 150 years after the fact, you know, conjure up anything. I mean, it would be, and it's not fair because you can't cross-examine witnesses. You can't, you know. So I mean, legally, I think this would never fly. Mm-hmm. But you're right. So, I mean, my question is this, and we're going to, of course, surprise, surprise, St. Paul's not the only place.
Right.
St. Paul's probably like 50th in line here looking at something like this. If you're going to pay, now is what they're talking about like a one-time payment to, and again, when you talk about minorities, I mean, are we talking just blacks?
Well,
you don't need an answer. I mean, it's just...
Well, yeah. I mean, the whole idea behind it is that they're making an apology or restitution for American slavery, which there were whites that were enslaved in the U.S. as well.
Back to British impressment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But specifically here, yes, that seems to be what they're talking about.
So, again, we're back to this... you know, this. First off, let's just stop. I want to quote some people from the St. Paul City Council.
Okay.
Just to get the line of thinking here.
Yes.
Because folks were enslaved at Fort Snelling. Mm-hmm. Now, remember, that was federal property. And technically a slave was property because Dred Scott actually was there for a short time. Mm-hmm. They also want to apologize for the historic wrong of the destruction of the Rondo neighborhood in the 1950s to build Interstate 94.
Yes.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, but when the federal government built the transportation system back in the 50s, they used eminent domain. We were a much less dense population, and we had more land out in the middle of nowhere. But other neighborhoods, other things were broken up by this federal transit system. And it was the federal government that did this, not the city of St. Paul, right?
Right.
So how in the world is how about every other neighborhood this is a black neighborhood back then. I don't know what it's like now. But the destruction of that, I assume those people got compensated for. May not have been, you know how government works. So in the domain, it was probably not what it should have been, but it isn't for anyone. So, you know, what is that doing on there? Comparing that to slavery?
Well, any injustice they can find, why not toss it in?
Okay, but if somebody okay. Never mind. I mean, I'm just baffled.
If you lived in St. Paul, they might throw in the time you stole Billy Worthington's lunch money.
Yeah, they might. Okay, you know, he beat me up afterward, but no. One of the first things we're doing by way of this resolution is apologizing for American slavery and the way in which our state and city have benefited from it, said City Councilmember Jan Prince. How did St. Paul benefit from slavery that they didn't have?
I don't know. That's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah, and I love how WCCO puts this out here and offers, you know, no counterpoint, no challenge to what anybody said.
It's no objectivity whatsoever. It's just making statements and
great reporting. So
fact check.
It allows for the forming of the St. Paul Recovery Act Community Reparations Commission.
Could they have made that name longer? By the time
Come up with an acronym, please.
They'll get people paid by the time they finish reading the title.
It's government now. Come on. They might be dead before they get it, especially if Chicago does it. It will advise the city on long-term investments to eliminate the disparities that exist between whites and blacks. Now, stop there. Mm-hmm. That's got nothing to do with slavery.
No.
That has to do with all the crap, all the equity, all that stuff that we've been hearing.
Yep, the Great Society, all the
Great Reset. So slavery has nothing to do today, I don't think, with inequities between whites and blacks.
I will say that. Well, no, that's not slavery. I mean, some of these things started in slavery, but Lyndon Johnson's work only made it worse, so separating families and making sure fathers were not in the home.
Yes, incentivizing it.
Huge problem.
I would argue also incentivizing people to not escape. Yeah. Second, if you're making $8 an hour, you're getting assistance. If you're making 10, you're getting nothing. It's like, well, wait a minute here. Why don't we
rewarding people that stay on the system and punishing people who try to get off before they're able to take care of themselves?
That's the catch-22 of the welfare system. So, okay, hold on. My WCCO here went to sleep on me. Okay.
That's okay. I think we all go to sleep with
messing.
WCCO, so it's all right.
the debt that our country owes to African American slavery, because it essentially propelled us into being an economic powerhouse in a brand new country. Prince said, what? In St. Paul.
Yeah.
Okay, are we missing a few other things, Jay? Like the Industrial Revolution and railroads and cars and oil, coal. Didn't they kind
freeways?
Did they canals? Did they kind of propel us into? Just a little bit.
Information superhighway. Yeah.
In a statement, Mayor Melvin Catta says every institution that has systematically enforced, sanctioned, or profited from the evil of slavery must participate fully in this work. Or else what?
I don't know.
Oh, boy. We got a name here. Taharin Cruz is leading the charge from the community. Yes. I think once people start acknowledging we did something wrong, I think we've acknowledged that with like the 13th Amendment, by the way.
I think so, yes. The Emancipation Proclamation, that was a pretty good recognition we did something wrong.
14th Amendment, redefining citizenship. 15th Amendment. I think we took care of that a long time ago. We are really excited that we're at this point where we can address the racial wealth gap, the education gap, past injustices, and start getting some healing going on. American today? What?
Going on in American today. That's probably a typo.
Forget the run-on sentence there.
We'll
but
give him the benefit of the doubt.
Once again, three different things.
Yes.
Wealth gap, education gap, and past injustices. Are very, very, very different.
Now,
the causes are different. The timeline's different. The people are different. Nothing is the same.
Now, I spent some time in corporate America. I don't talk about it much because I try to forget. But
I'm with you there.
Here's something that I noticed when I was in corporate America, and this was some years ago. Didn't seem to matter what color or gender you were. If you applied yourself, you succeeded. there were people that were white, black, women, men, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, all making quite a bit of money. They were in positions of leadership. They headed up different parts of the organization. In fact, I would say, and it's probably, I think, in corporate America started to turn quite a bit, that they started to prefer leaders that were of a different ethnicity and or gender than you or I.
I agree, and not always for the right reasons either.
No, but to say that there is a gap if you apply yourself and if you work hard, there's really not. It is.
But it also, Jay, it also depends on how you define gap.
Yeah.
Okay, take this for an example.
Okay.
Say you have a black male who is a police officer. Mm-hmm. His partner is a white male who is a police officer.
Yes.
Okay, there may be a gap between the two of them based on experience or something like that. Mm-hmm. But they're doing the same job. I guarantee you there isn't much of a gap there.
No, there's steps and ladders in a union pay scale like that, and they don't discriminate.
But it's not just union, it's position that you attain.
Right.
If you are a doctor, they don't pay a black doctor 50% of what they pay a white doctor. Okay, if you've got that degree and you've got that skill set, you are needed somewhere. Okay?
Yes.
The point is that the gap is not a one of we're not paying you based on your qualifications. Mm-hmm. The gap is a lack of qualified. Mm-hmm. Now that is the problem. That is what needs to be fixed.
Yes.
Not okay, let's just put a bunch of black faces up in a corporate office, call it a day. No. What happened? There's a clamor everywhere to hire minority police officers, minority teachers. Mm-hmm. Sounds great, but there's a limited amount because you have fewer people who meet the qualifications for those jobs.
Right.
So don't you have to fix the underlying problem first?
You do, and universities have tried to go about this in the wrong way.
Universities couldn't do anything right. The only time they do something right is by accident. We just say that.
Yes.
They're not institutions of learning anymore.
No.
They're nothing of the sort.
But they try to find people of, check the boxes. We need X amount of this, X amount of that for the different majors that we got. And, our attendance has to be reflective of a diverse community. And, so.
It's to sell brochures almost.
Yeah.
But again, I go back to something like an education is a great example of where it's such a catch-22. Because an education is earned. Mm-hmm. Okay, you have the right to go for your education. You have you can get a high school diploma in this country for free.
Yes.
No matter who you are, where you live, whether it's GED or whatever it is, if you want that, it's right there in front of you. If you want to go beyond that, there are more opportunities today than there ever have been. There's more opportunities for people today than there were for you and me just 20 years ago, Jay.
Yeah.
With the online, with the technical colleges, the places like Dunwoody, I guess, was around. But places like that, you can go part-time. Mm-hmm. There's so much opportunity out there. Where does the responsibility for that begin and end? You know what I mean? If you're sitting around, and this goes for anybody, if you're sitting around whining and complaining, but you spend your whole day and night watching Flixnet, okay, you're not going to get anywhere. I don't care who you are. You're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
Ask somebody who's successful and figure out how they got there.
It doesn't matter what color you are. If you spend your day sitting on the couch eating chips, smoking weed, and playing video games, you're going to be a big zero.
Maybe occasionally doing some homework. But no, you're right. It's and to me, I've always said this, to me, to teaching minorities that they are disadvantaged. That if they don't make it, it's somebody else's fault.
Right.
Is the exact wrong attitude to put in their heads.
Yes, it is. I mean, what have we always said on this show? That black people are every bit as smart as white people, are every bit as smart as Asian people, as every bit as smart as Hispanic, as Native American, as whatever, men and women. It doesn't matter. And out of that group, if you take advantage of your opportunities, there are just as many super intelligent people that are able to create, that are able to achieve, that are able to change the course of humanity with the things that they invent, whether that is a physical product, whether that is a procedure, whether that is...
It's limitless, untapped potential.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it is. It's just sad.
Instead, we try to groom people into, oh, you're this color, you should play this sport. Oh, you're this color, you should play this kind of music. Oh, you're this color, you should go into academics. Oh, you're this color, you should do this. And it's tragic because that's when you're really putting limitations on people and you're capping their opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's putting everybody into a group, checking a box, making assumptions about people based on... I mean, it goes even further than that, though. I mean, they'll take a kid and based on their parents' occupation or something like that, label a kid at risk. You are at risk. You know, so the first thing that comes with that, lower the expectations. That's thing number one. Number two, we've got to put them in a special group or in a special, program. Can't be with everybody else. You know, we've got to get them on their whatever you call it, whatever the soccer moms love, education track or something like that.
College readiness.
College readiness. There's another one, too, and I'll think of it. Career path. That's the other one. Oh, give that soccer mom a fan. Look out. But back to this thing here. When you see all these code words about inequity, let me tell you what I think we're really looking at here. Okay, we're not looking at reparations for slavery. That's a cover. Okay, and even if we are, and we do need to pay attention because St. Paul spends our money. They get federal money. They get state money. It's our money. Part of this is ours. Okay, but this is to set up the ultimate system of crony capitalism. Yes. Stick with me. Minority-owned businesses are going to get special treatment. I think that's the ultimate of what's going to happen. Minority students are going to get special treatment. Then they're not going to be allowed to fail.
Well, that already is.
You give a minority business a break, and businesses succeed and fail for all different reasons. As soon as that starts to go under, what's going to happen, Jay? A bailout.
Right.
You can't allow it to fail. That only increases the inequity, and we can't let that happen. We can't allow, we've seen it in schools, we can't allow expulsion. Can't allow a kid to get an F. Everybody's got to get a trophy.
Right.
So they're going to make this situation twice as bad. Maybe that's the goal.
Maybe.
To keep them there. I've always looked at, and this is going to sound harsher than I mean it, but I've always wondered when the black community is going to scratch their head and go, okay, we've been complaining about the same things for like 100 years now, and we've been voting for the same people who promise they're going to fix them, and they haven't done squat. We're in the same...
Yeah.
I mean, there's responsibility both ways, but I mean, at what point is some self-reflection going to go on and go, you know what? We're not getting anywhere listening to these people or taking their handouts or living in their rundown public housing.
And for the most part, I mean, a good portion of them are church-going people that are pro-life.
Right. There's a lot. There's a lot of... That doesn't get much the same thing in the Hispanic community. Doesn't get much play, but yeah, there's a lot of faith. There's a lot of family, even though the black family, the nuclear black family, has been damaged, I think, by government.
Right. The extended, however,
is very strong a lot of times, and so, but I just, Jay, I want it to change.
Yeah.
I don't want another generation of black families, black kids, growing up with that hopeless sort of cloud over them. And I think this is the opposite of what needs to be done. The total wrongheadedness of putting them even more on the government dime. I think that's, and I'll tell you what, it's gotten worse with COVID. It's gotten worse with the Floyd case. It's gotten worse with, anything you can think of here. It's gotten more radical. It's gotten, it's scary when you think of the same people who talk about racial equity are the same people who see, race in everything you can possibly think of.
Right.
So, I think we're worse off than we've been in a long, long time.
I think so, too. I think things were starting to get better until the Barack Obama administration, and then it was a lot of finger pointing at white people. It was a lot of, my grandmother, she just has what is bred into her in her whiteness. She's a black person and goes and walks on the other side of the street. It's statements like that. It's.
I thought electing Obama ended all racism. I thought we're no longer a racist country. Right?
I think we were a lot better off up through the end of the Bush administration, but
I think we were better off previously also. I think it's gotten worse. And I don't know what's perpetuated that. I don't know that I can point the finger at the former president. I don't know if it's just social media. I don't know if it's...
Well, it's that. It's the think tanks. It's media in and of itself.
Media is as bad in this country as it is anywhere, and I don't know what's going to turn it around.
And recently, there have been a lot of African Americans that have decided to check out conservatism and find a home there, and I think that scares the liberal folk as well.
Yeah, they're called Uncle Toms. They're treated as not necessarily by the people around them, but by big tech and by...
Although they are too, and you hear stories about it where people in my family have ostracized me. They call me this, they call me that.
Yeah. The groupthink is everywhere.
Yeah, it is. It's not just there, that's for sure. But
I think that that's true. But I think that again, unfortunately, is there a messaging problem, Jay? What do you think it really? Because here's the thing. When you go vote or something, you don't have to tell anybody who you voted for.
Right.
You don't have to, I've kept things quiet before from people other than my wife. And what's going to, how does that message get to, let me give you an example. Take an issue, and I chastise conservatives for this. Take an issue like school choice. School choice is extremely popular in minority communities.
Yes, it is.
They want that choice. Okay. Yet there's a difference between the messaging and so why does that exist? Is something not being articulated right? Has the V word gotten demonized? What causes that?
Well, let's look. I know people are going to start screaming because I'm going to mention President Trump here, but he had more African Americans vote for him than any other presidential candidate on the Republican ticket in a long, 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 long time.
Yeah.
He was not afraid to reach out to them, to talk to them, to listen to them, to find out what their needs were, to try and work with them on behalf of things that were important to them. And they don't do that here in Minnesota.
How about
the Republicans?
Yeah, you bring up President Trump. How about second chance legislation that Barack Obama promised in 8 years, never delivered?
Yeah.
And President Trump delivered on it.
Right.
I mean, but it's important. You boost a car when you're 19, you can change. You ought to get a second chance in life. And in the this is federal now, system, you didn't get that. And you boost a car and you cross state lines, you've committed a federal offense. And that was changed in 2018. And I think for the better, because I think people have to get a chance to show what they're worth.
Right.
And I'd like to know. I'd like to personally ask, Karen Housley or Jeff Johnson, how many times they set foot in Minneapolis or St. Paul, other than going to the Capitol. And I wonder,
or their meetings.
Yeah, I know. It's easy to go talk to people that you agree with. I mean, it's hard to go and say, look. I mean, in fact, there was a Somali debate, I remember, I think it was late 2017. And all gubernatorial candidates at that time were invited. The only person who showed up on the Republican side was Keith Downey. He had not dropped out yet. He lives in Edina. He lives actually quite close to Minneapolis. But it was like every DFL candidate and one of like the 10 Republican. And I thought, man, I bet Downey took a beating that night. But you got to show up. I mean, you want to be governor, you got to be governor of everybody.
Yes.
And again, that's just a kind of missed opportunity. And look, I don't know that it's just stuff like that, but again, if you've decided as a party that you can win without campaigning and spending money, you can't expect those people to then be open to your ideas and your...
Well, and here's the thing. I think a lot of those people have the same ideas. When you talk about school choice, when you talk about pro-life, when you talk about things like that, they have the same ideas.
And I tell you what, if I lived in Minneapolis, I'd be packing. Second Amendment would be pretty important to me too.
Yeah.
And I bet there's a lot of people secretly saying,
absolutely.
What? I need to protect myself. I'm not going to go out shooting anybody, but in self-defense. So, I mean, I think there's opportunity rampant.
Right.
But I think Republicans in this state have made the calculation. We can win the House, we can win the Senate without carrying anything from any. So let's just leave that, and then they scratch their heads as to why they don't make any inroads into. And then you know what happens if that minority gets some success and is able to move out to the suburbs. What do? They vote the way they've always voted.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen a lot of that happen over time, that they've grown more successful, some of them, but they're voting the same way they've always voted. And that's old habits are hard to break.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. I mean, Republicans, if you don't reach out and show them who you are, all they're going to know about you is how the Democrats paint you.
Yeah.
Their opinion of you is going to be formed by how you are characterized by the opposition. And so that's why you can't make any inroads, because they think that you're a certain way.
Rule number 1 about politics. Actually, it's not rule number 1. It's like rule number 5. But a big time rule. You either define yourself or somebody else will define you.
Yep.
Period.
Absolutely.
So you either take control or you don't. And if you're in St. Paul, I mean, you don't have... Who are your choices of people representing you right now?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's not quite as bad as Minneapolis. It's like 97%. But,
I don't think they have a conservative on the city council either.
No, I don't think either one does. But I think Minneapolis is even worse.
Yeah.
But, Jay, moving on just first, we'll come back to this in a second. other cities across the country, and you've done some interesting analyses on that, as well as who might be the puppet masters pulling the strings. Because, of course, all these things don't happen just by coincidence. I know everybody thinks that government has original ideas once in a while, but usually they don't. Usually it comes from somebody else or a group or a think tank or a foundation, which is just a rich guy's tax shelter. I mean, where else are we seeing this? Because reparations have been my whole adult life. I've been hearing about it. Mm-hmm. Oh, Congress is going to pass reparations. Congress is going to do this. State of blah, 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 blah. And it's never gone anywhere. I mean, substantially. Right. They've issued resolutions. They've done the feel-good stuff. But we haven't gotten what's being discussed now. So where else around this sea to shining sea here have we seen this movement?
Well, and that's it. St. Paul didn't just happen to find a nut. They weren't sitting around it. Hey.
Sometimes you find a nut, sometimes you don't. Is that how it goes?
Not quite, but that's good enough. That'll work. Hey, I think I got an idea. It didn't happen like that.
Bing!
So whenever I see something like this come up, part of my research that I do, one of the first things I always do, what cities are doing X, right? And sometimes I find things, and sometimes I don't find so many things. This one...
By the way, I want to find out where the first roundabout ever was made. I know we did the roundabout show like 4 years ago. I want to parachute in to like one of those council meetings and do a few things to whoever came up with the first roundabout. So
and take the leather glove and slap them in the face.
I don't want to say what I'm going to do. I might parachute in with items.
Challenge you to a duel, sir. Yes.
I will not lose that.
So there was a whole list of cities that have started to do this, which I thought was interesting. And anytime I see something happen in at least a couple of cities, I know somebody else is behind it, and we'll get to that. But it kind of lit up like when maybe I'm dating myself, but you're playing pinball and all of a sudden everything starts shooting all over the board and everything's lighting up and dinging and you don't even have to touch the paddles.
Sounds like when I play.
That's what happened when I did a Google search on this. Is like, oh wow, that city too. Oh wow.
Now, Jay, if you were a gambling man, you'd say it's the G hit the jackpot.
Yes.
If you were a
yes.
I know you're not one of the Allman Brothers. You're not a gambling man.
That's Rambling Man.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Word.
Close enough.
Yeah, it's fine. What's one consonant between friends? All right. Yeah. This is from the Sun-Times of Chicago. Measure to create Chicago Reparations Commission advances to City Council.
You know what? Can I just jump in here?
Yes.
I tell you what, I have such an affection for Chicago. I mean, it's hard not to. With all the movies that have been about Chicago and the Cubs and I mean, I got an affection for that city.
Yeah. I got an infection from that city.
Yeah, well.
They haven't scrubbed it down in a while.
Well, Jay, you should have noticed that toilet seat. Okay. But let me just say this, that I mean, it is one of the great American cities. Mm-hmm. Okay, but why is it? I mean, you got the Cubs, you got the Navy Pier, you've got the Riverwalk,
you got Blues, you got
all the great John Hughes movies. You know, I mean, and yet, why do they have to do this to me? I have an affection. My wife and I went there for our 1-year anniversary and had a blast.
Yeah,
I mean, granted it was $9 a drink, but I mean, why?
I remember going there
Deep
as a kid.
dish pizza.
Parking downtown, and we were going to go to the top of the Sears Tower, and some guy tried to sell us watches out of his trench coat. That's my first memory of Chicago.
Buy a nice Casio or something?
We didn't buy anything. We went to the Sears Tower, and then I think split and went to Nuts on Clark. Bought some candy.
But I'll tell you what, it's weird because I have the same affection for New York.
Yeah.
I mean, I went there one time, okay? it was a dump. Okay, it was not what I expected. I mean, it was cool to see the Statue of Liberty and the Empire State Building in Central Park, but I never went back. I wouldn't care. Okay, and I only go back. I go back for two reasons. One, my wife wanted to go, and two, see a Yankees game.
Yeah,
the only reason I'd ever go back. And I'd like to go to Madison Square Garden. Okay, three. Okay. But I mean, Chicago. I had a blast in Chicago. I have an affection to the Blues Brothers. I got an affection for that city. Why do they do this?
Because they're Chicago. Because they elect people like Lori Lightfoot.
Yeah, and it's always been bad. I mean, it's that part of Chicago. Been mobbed up.
Crooked as the day is long.
They invented. They invented crooked.
20s. Yeah.
The gangsters and original Richard Daley. I mean, the dead people voting. I mean, it just. But you know what? I have an affection for the city, but they got to ruin. Bigfoot. Their Bigfoot has to ruin all this stuff.
Well, and I don't know how much she's had to do with this yet. This was in the city council, and that they're a strong mayor city, so it will have to cross her desk eventually. This was from June 6th. I would imagine this article here.
It's a bad idea. I'm sure she's in on it.
Yeah. So what did it say here? It was unanimously passed by Chicago City Council Committee Friday and scheduled to go before the full council June 17th. So yeah.
Now, how many people are on their council? That's got to be a big council.
Oh goodness, I don't know.
What's Chicago? The third largest city still?
No, Houston's the third.
Oh, I thought Houston was the fourth.
New York, LA, Houston. I don't know what's fourth, but I mean it's big, it looks like Lori Lightfoot. She was on board with this. Had one change to it, but it was a pretty minor change. They needed to develop a plan to ensure equity, equality, and parity. So, but yeah, it's odd that Chicago.
Okay, officially Chicago is still number 3.
What?
Although Houston may pass them with the next census.
Really?
Yeah. Phoenix is 5th, Philadelphia 6th, San Antonio, San Diego, Dallas, and San Jose.
Really, San Jose?
Yeah, 1 million people in San Jose.
Gee whiz.
It's funny with
one kind of snuck up on me.
It's funny with that, considering California is not doing well when you talk about.
Well, when the census numbers come out, that may change too, because people are fleeing like roaches from a cheap motel.
Yeah, so. How about you look at number 12, Jacksonville?
Yeah.
Columbus, Ohio's number 14. Charlotte has been a big growing city. I don't even see it. I don't know where Minneapolis would be on here. St. Paul is number 53.
Yeah.
In Minneapolis. This is according to the 2010 census, so we'll get new numbers next year. But Minneapolis, number 46. Right in between Oakland and Tulsa.
Wow.
So, yep. Anyhow, it doesn't matter, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. There's another Illinois city that has ventured into this. That's Evanston, Illinois. They are levying a tax on newly legalized marijuana to fund projects benefiting African Americans in recognition of the enduring effects of slavery and the war on drugs. So they're going to tax marijuana because they are saying that black people have taken, like the war on drugs has taken a toll on the black community?
I have heard that legalizing drugs, I have heard that linked with racism because of, but again, how does legalizing them help the, I mean, there's arguments to be made on both sides. I don't want to debate it, but I mean, if you've got, a drug-infested neighborhood, legalizing that, what are they going to disappear? No, people are just going to do it more out in the open, and they're going to set up shop. They're going to set up a lemonade stand.
I don't know.
Get your booger sugar. I mean,
just so everybody knows, Evanston is a suburb of Chicago, but it's
is that where Northwestern University is?
Ooh, maybe
that's a yuppie. I believe it's kind of a yuppie journalism school.
Really?
I think so. I think that is. But anyhow,
yeah.
So, good old suburb, not to be outdone. Not to be outdone. But, you know what I'd like to see is an accounting of where that money actually goes.
Yeah.
Where do you think that actually goes?
A lot of it goes to administration, I'm sure.
Well, of course it does. Yeah. But, I mean, why is it? I mean, I wonder if you go to Evanston's website, and we're not going to do it here, but, I mean, if you actually go there, does it have a breakdown of where, I'll just say it's $10 million. Let's just throw a number. It's probably, I don't know what it is. I don't know how big Evanston is. I think it's a city of like 50,000. But, I mean, where does that $10 million, how is that benefiting the black community there? I mean, what is being spent to, better their lives or increase their opportunity or what?
Well, you and I have both read through the city budgets and comprehensive annual financial reports, and you know that you see money coming in and you see money going out, but it really, once it comes in, it's kind of a mystery how it gets split into different places. Once it comes in, how do they appropriate that money?
Different states have different rules too as to how they can do that. And not every city is as transparent as another. So, they can send, we're spending $5 million on police, but how that's broken down is not always clear. What's being spent on wages, what's being spent on equipment, vehicles. A lot of times that's in the comprehensive annual financial report because that has depreciation. And it's really strange because the daily stuff, like fueling them up, is in the budget, but buying them is in the CAFR.
Yeah,
because it's you're right. It is hard to discern. Yeah. But I'd just be curious if there's some sort of is there some sort of grade of success? Is there some sort of way you're measuring success or failure?
Well, I mean, and here's what they say. The city council voted 8-1 in November to approve a plan to establish a reparations program with 100% of the sales tax revenue from the recreational marijuana in the city going to the initiative. Now, they're saying that under the plan, up to $10 million from cannabis tax revenue will go directly into the reparations fund over the next 10 years. Though Rainey suggested to The Guardian that the city may hit that $10 million sooner based on the high demand for marijuana since it became legal here earlier. Long lines have formed outside the dispensary. Okay, that's a different story. We'll have to talk about that later. But
so the black people can fund their own prosperity by...
Yeah, how does that work? Yeah. I'm going to go down and buy me some weed, and then I'm going to get a check.
Yeah, I'll get somebody on the back end. So we're encouraging people to get high, and then, so again, we have really no accounting of what that's
right.
Doing
how that's being spent. I mean, there's a fund. Okay,
look, if government has 10 cents, it's being spent. Okay, it's not sitting there getting 3% interest in somebody's savings.
No, in fact, they're very clear about this. How precisely the funds will be put to use is not yet clear.
No.
The committee is currently receiving guidance from experts and organizations, including the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America.
Oh, hey, they're objective.
Right. And seeking out additional community input. So
we'll get the money first. We'll decide what to do with it later.
Yeah.
All right. Now, what are some other cities, Jay, that we got? Cities like the great city of Detroit,
yes,
right?
Yes, Detroit is in that list as well. Last August, they passed an ordinance around community reparations as well. Looks like July, in the wake of all the stuff that went on with all of the riots, and they thought it was a good idea. They quoted the New York Times op-ed, because an op-ed is always a great source of facts. If true justice and equality are ever to be achieved in the United States, the country must finally take seriously what it owes black Americans. So the council recognized that reparations for slavery and post-emancipation systemic discrimination and racism have been prominent among protesters' demands during the recent historic demonstrations. So they're taking advantage of the whole George Floyd thing and the demonstrations that followed in order to come up with this committee to decide, how they're going to collect money and then disperse it on behalf of reparations.
They're going to watch Evanston do it first.
Yeah. So.
All right. I'm not surprised here in Detroit.
Right. These are all.
Surprised Governor Whitmer hasn't given them a grant or something yet.
Yeah. These are all like upper Midwest cities. Right. How about down south? North Carolina City approves reparations for black residents. This is Asheville, North Carolina. Asheville City Council has apologized for the North Carolina City's historic role in slavery, discrimination, and denial of basic liberties to black residents, and voted to provide reparations to them and their descendants. So not just them, but their children as well. And maybe their children's children, and maybe their children's children. I don't. That's hard to say. Children.
So I wonder how much money that is exactly.
And again, in another, historic vote, there was lots of opposition. It was 7-0, as so many city council
votes
are.
What's the city again?
Asheville.
Where is that exactly in North Carolina?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Just wondering if that's out in Tobacco Road, or if that's by Raleigh or Charlotte or something like that. Doesn't matter. But yeah, the close vote, the group think.
It's in western North Carolina in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
But again, I still come back to what exactly. What first off, proving you're a descendant of a slave is, I would argue, not going to be that simple.
Yeah.
So are we is that just a cover for we're going to all blacks are going to get something, or
Yeah, that's let's see, further down, they talk about the hundreds of years of black blood spilled and basically fills the cup we drink from today.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I guess they're saying that we've profited from that, is another way to say that over hundreds of years of killing black people, we've profited from that. It's simply not enough to remove statues.
Like that does anything.
Right. Well, we told you not to remove the statues. Further down, let's see, where is it here? They didn't really come to any decisions, but they acknowledged the gaps, like St. Paul, and said they allowed an hour of public comment, a whole hour, for something that's going to be a permanent tax.
But again, are we talking about reparations, or are we talking about this creating a new welfare state, if you will, crony capitalism, or whatever you want to call it? Yeah. That's just forever and ongoing. Blacks will get special treatment. They won't be allowed to fail. They won't be, where are we headed with that? It sounds like they're talking about reparations. And when you get into it, it's more about the same equity stuff that you just hear over and over again.
Yeah. And so all it says is that the resolution they passed calls on the city to create the Community Reparations Commission.
Where have we heard that before?
St. Paul.
Chicago, St. Paul, D-Toilet. I mean, how is it possible that they're all calling for the same thing, Jay? How does that happen?
Well, that's great. I don't know. Well, there are more.
Have these cities gotten Windows 95 now and they can talk to each other?
Yeah. Wilmington, Delaware is another one. And so is Winston-Salem.
North Carolina again? Okay.
Yeah, North Carolina again. And also Burlington, Vermont, Kalamazoo, Michigan, District of Columbia. And the list goes on and on and on and on. These are just the ones that I found right away within about 5 minutes of searching. So how could this thing have come to be in so many cities? It was organic, just like the comprehensive plans that all have mixed use development and increase in parks.
You just like Tobacco 21 and just like all the other things we've talked about. They all just somehow...
Everybody had the same good idea at one time. Or bad idea.
Complete streets, green step. We could just go on and on and on about the coordinated effort of who here, Jay?
Well,
I'm sure many, but...
We have some friends. Well, they're not really our friends. The United States Conference of Mayors, whom we've talked about them before. I can find out exactly what episode that was on, but yes. So that is a group of mayors across the United States, and it's generally very liberal mayors.
Big city
generally. And, they've pushed climate change in the past and the Paris Accords.
And we should mention there's a world summit as well of
yes,
people like that. Yeah.
Yes. But, they get together every year and they have a conference and they try to decide what are the important things that they need to take back to their cities and implement. So this is one of those things.
No matter what their city charter says their job is.
Right. And so who's paying for them to fly out to this conference and, I'm
sure it's on their credit card, right?
Yeah. Of course. I'm sure you and I are paying for that.
Let me guess that the conference is not in Provo, Utah. It's in, it's not in Davenport, Iowa. It's always in some ritzy, expensive place to go, right? It's
yes.
It's not going to be in,
Well, I think that it was, what was it? Oh, that was the world one that was in Winnipeg, I think, last.
I think it was some Canadian city. I don't remember which, though.
Anyways, so they had a resolution at their 88th annual meeting in support of the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act. And this is kind of like talked about in the last episode, how with the original Republican platform, they make a series of sweeping statements on where they stand. Whereas Congress finds that 4 million Africans and their descendants were brought to this land and enslaved in the American colonies beginning in 1619. Oh, so here we have the 1619 project again.
We weren't a country.
No, we weren't a country.
Bill the British.
That was England. And now, granted, we didn't kill slavery on day one of the country, but we worked toward it and eventually did it. But that is a lie. It has been debunked. The 1619 project from the New York Times has been debunked as complete and utter baloney. And it's not true.
Yeah, it's teaching people President Trump was right. It's teaching people, young people, to hate America.
Correct me if I'm wrong, we did not bring slaves to Jamestown.
No.
because that's what they're saying, that when Jamestown was set up, that we came here with the intent to profit off of slavery.
No,
and it's not true.
People came here for a million reasons.
Well, one of the main
freedom,
reasons was religious freedom and evangelistic purposes.
That was probably the number one reason.
Yes. Both with the Pilgrims up in Plymouth and with the Jamestown settlement, because that's actually where they were trying to get to when they got lost and all that. And the Plymouth group.
The voyage, yep.
Yeah. So
start with their premise.
Their whole premise
wrong.
is crap.
Whereas your premise is stupid and wrong, and you're an idiot. Continue.
Also says, whereas the passage and ratification of the 13th Amendment in 1865 abolished slavery, but it did not eradicate systemic racism and the institutional structures that perpetuate it.
Oh, I mean, that didn't go away overnight? Oh, I'm shocked.
Yeah, you can change somebody's heart with a law.
I mean, come on here.
The Democrats still ruled the South after that. Well,
and after radical Reconstruction, for sure. But, I mean, the idea that, again, you go to the 13th, 14th, and 15th. You have to group them together. Mm-hmm. As we ended slavery, redefined citizenship, and then granted blacks the right to vote. That is, and then with women later. Those three things have to be taken together.
Yeah.
As three, that's three steps that 20 years earlier in the United States was unthinkable. Mm-hmm. Look how much the country changed that quickly. Go back to what happened, the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Mm-hmm. 1934, that was unthinkable.
Right.
Okay, it takes time to move, and the idea that whereas we didn't do it all overnight, it's not fair, and they know it. Mm-hmm. And nobody alive today had anything to do with that.
No.
We read about it in a history book.
No, but they contend that it does. And after a whole bunch of other whereases with Reconstruction in the 1960s, like you talked about, it says the black Americans today still contend with and suffer from resulting racial disparities in outcomes related to wealth, income, employment, education, housing, health, criminal justice, and environmental justice. And then they quote the Brookings Institution, where black household wealth, $17,150, is only 1/10 the average of net worth of a white family at $171,000. I'm sorry, but the average net worth of a white family is not $171,000.
Where the hell do they get that?
I'd like to make half of that. That'd be nice.
Where do they get that?
I don't make that. Can I get some reparations?
Well, I make way more than that, but still, I just don't understand it.
And the Brookings.
By the way, how about cite your figures?
Yeah, and using the Brookings Institution, a notoriously left-leaning group that is has ties to the Clintons. And,
notice how they don't use like the Labor Department,
right? Yeah, it's not government; it's think tanks that lean left. Yeah. It's skewed to begin with. So they keep talking about limited economic opportunity, intergenerational wealth, racial disparities within criminal justice system, recent tragedies. So mayors see these disparities our cities and recognize urgent need for breakthrough change that disrupts systemic racism and inhibits the realization of a nation of liberty, prosperity, and justice for all. And mayors resolve to do better for our black residents by promoting equal rights and greater equity and opportunity through the implementation of policy reforms at the local level, as well as through our advocacy for action at the federal level. And in recent weeks, demonstrators have taken to the streets to protest police brutality, advocate for racial equality, and proclaim Black Lives Matter, expressing that the status quo is unacceptable and underscoring the importance of the moment. And the late former U.S. Representative John Conyers of Michigan introduced the Commission to Study, Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act, H.R. 40, repeatedly throughout his service in multiple sessions of Congress, seeking to advance this legislation to establish a commission to study and develop reparation proposals. And during the 116th Congress, U.S. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, she's a treat,
the author of a bill that I'm not making this up in Congress to name hurricanes after black people.
Yes.
It wasn't good enough to have Hurricane Katrina Vanden Heuvel or Hurricane, but we had to have Hurricane Jamal and Tyrell and all that. She actually authored a bill to do that.
Yes. So she did that in the Congress, and then Senator Spartacus over in the Cory Booker in the Senate.
Oh, good God.
Had the companion bill. So anyways, of course, it hasn't gone
Cory
anywhere.
Booker, by the way, a son of privilege.
Yes, he is.
Not a guy who's worked a day in his life.
Yes. So anyways, after all that, and that failed and whatever, they have decided, that they want to push in their cities, be it further resolved that the nation's mayors want to thank Sheila Jackson Lee and Cory Booker, and that they recommend the establishment of the Federal Commission to study and consider a national apology and proposal for reparations for the institution of slavery, as well as subsequent de jure, that's of the day, and de facto discrimination against black Americans to the present day, and the nation's mayors urge House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to act on this legislation during the 116th Congress. And so they keep pushing for this, and so they also decided then to bring this back to their cities. You have these mayors that, so we see, again, an overarching national group pushing down to the local level. And this happens so many times. And, whether it is fairvote.org, whether it is the National League of Cities, whether it is the National Association of Development Organizations, over and over and over and over and over and over, we see these national groups, GARE, that keep pushing for things at the city level that they cannot get done.
Well, of course, it's easier to, if I were going to, how many times have we said, Jay, that it's easier to win a smaller election than a bigger election? You know what I mean? It's easier to win a city council seat than it is a congressional seat. Mm-hmm. Let's just be blunt about it.
Right.
So they're adopting, they're stealing a page out of our book here, that if I can't get something, I will do. If I can't get it from the top down, I'll get it from the bottom up.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. It's that simple.
Yeah. So,
and then there's going to be peer pressure,
right?
The more that's, what are you, a racist city? Huh? You better pass a resolution saying that you aren't. Oh, you care about black people? Well, then you better, it is going to be a lot of peer pressure to comply with the latest thing. You think the media is going to do an honest investigation of this? You're a moron if you think that.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, so, there are over 1,400 mayors in their database from cities size 30,000 and larger. So it's an important group because they take these things and they go back to their cities. Melvin Carter's in the database. Of course he is. Lori Lightfoot's in the database.
Sure, that moron in New York is there too. It's got to be. New York City's got to be in it.
Of course. Although De Blasio, maybe he's not, because he thinks he's the most important thing to have ever.
Maybe he's so incompetent that they can't even include him.
I'm just saying, maybe he is so narcissistic that he doesn't need the other mayors. That's all I'm saying.
to be honest with you, a world mayor would be an improvement over de Blasio. Let's be blunt here. I'm actually okay with Cuomo taking over the city. It can't get any worse. I mean, under him, it might improve 5%.
Well,
which isn't saying much, but it can't get any worse than de Blasio. I mean, it makes me miss Mike Bloomberg. I mean, that's incompetence.
Yeah.
I mean,
Bloomberg was bad.
It's like Lightfoot makes me miss Rahm Emanuel. I mean, it just gets nothing but get worse.
Yeah?
I mean, Rahm at least had a brain in his head. I could go that far. It's just...
Yeah?
Going to clamor for Richard
Jacob
Daley.
Fry makes me miss Betsy Hodges.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, maybe
RT.
RT, maybe Sharon Sales Belton.
Yeah. Well, I used to have a nickname for her. I can't think of it. It doesn't matter. All right. Well, hopefully we gave you some nice bathroom reading there, I'm sure.
So, but here's the thing. I mean, this is coming to a city near you. It's coming to these big cities, and it's coming to some of the suburbs, like we see in Evanston, Illinois.
Well, don't be surprised if it's taken up by Duluth, Mankato, bigger
St. Louis Park.
Yes, Brooklyn Park.
Bloomington.
I mean, cities like that, too, that, generally they follow... St. Louis Park in particular,
right?
Follow once something gets in the big city, a handful of them adopt it, and these people are okay with winning small battles. Jay, they're okay with winning little wars. They'll paper cut you to death as long as their agenda is moving forward. They're okay with it.
Right.
So and they're always coming too. You can win one battle, and they're always coming. It's kind of like that one show. I saw it once. I thought it was terrible. I never watched it again. That one show?
No.
Walking Dead. It's kind of like that. The zombies just keep coming.
Right.
That show's awful. Anyhow.
I was just taking a quick look at our neighbors to the east. I don't know.
Our neighbors to the east?
Yeah, seeing if Madison had anything like that going. Yeah, Dane County District 14 Supervisor Anthony Gray likes the idea of modern reparations. Yeah, see? It's coming everywhere. See, that took me 2 seconds to find that.
Well, I'll give you 10 seconds to see what you'd find.
Milwaukee and Madison's American Family Insurance Dream Bank. Interesting. Okay.
Jay.
Wow.
It's that time again.
Yes.
Where you enlighten us with words of wisdom. Jet flying, limousine riding, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun, the king of sting. The man that women love, the men want to be. I present once again Community Solutions, the sign-off sermon, SOS. I give you the one, the only, Jason Bradley.
Thank you, Andrew. As I think about what we talked about today, politicians gonna politic. I mean, that's the way it works. They're gonna continue to come up with bad ideas until we stand up to them and we do something about it. That's really it. As long as we let people, we watch these cities. The city council goes from kind of liberal, or like a blue dog Democrat, to liberal, to more liberal, to progressive, to socialist, to radical. It just keeps moving further that way. And we don't see things go in the other direction. It's kind of funny how that works. We're always the ones that are expected to compromise and give up part of our ideals. And the left just kind of takes that little bit. They put that on their wall, pack it in with some mud, and just wait for us to give in a little more so they can put that on there too. What can we do about reparations? Well, other than replace everybody on every city council where they're talking about this, I mean, it's not the problem. It's a symptom of a problem. You know, the problem. I mean, nobody's going to disagree that there have been racial issues in this country, and that it's a shame. You know, people are the same. It was the old Depeche Mode song. I think we quoted it at the beginning of one of our episodes. People are people. So how can it be that you and I treat each other so awfully? Let me tell you. That's what it's about. Is us treating each other the right way, realizing that we're created in God's image and that we are able to accomplish anything so long as it is, you know, where your strengths lie, where your talents are, what you're able to learn and pursue. We all have the same opportunity in this country, but we do not have the same outcome. Some of us are meant to do one thing. Some of us are meant to do another. Some of us, it just takes us longer to find out what that is. Sometimes it's just a journey that you're on your entire life. And you start in point A, and by the time you reach that day where you go home to meet your maker, you find yourself far away from where you began, but it's been a great journey so far as we pursue it. Now, the problem comes with those who say, oh, you can't do it. You are not able to do it without us. You're not able to do it without our money. You're not able to do it without our privilege, because that's what they're doing. They're peddling privilege. They want to say, oh, Whitey over there, he privileged. He is privileged and you are not. So that's why you need us, because we're going to equal the playing field. And you're going to be able to have the same outcomes as that guy over there. All you got to do is put your trust in me. Well, that's where we have gone off the rails, because it's not about what government can do for us, but it is about what has our innate nature that is inside of our very heart, what we burn with passion to do. You know, for me, that's music. I love to write songs. I love to play music. But secondarily, it's this. Coming on here, telling you guys about what's coming down the pike, what we see out there in the United States of America, and how we can fix it. You know, this is my sport. But I'm afraid with what we face. If things turn out, as we record this, we're a little early this week. We're doing this on a Tuesday. Tomorrow is the inauguration, supposedly, of Joe Biden. From some undisclosed location, not here. He's not in our underground bunker. But this could be the last free broadcast that we ever record. Now, granted, we probably got a few, but don't think that this broadcast is immune from what they want to do. They want to not only shut down places like Newsmax and Fox News and get them kicked off of cable. They also want to come after advertisers of programs like this. They want to come after the cable companies, the internet companies, Amazon taking Parler off of the internet and just saying, we're shutting your servers down. They could take us off at any time. But you know what? We believe in what we do so much that we are going to be here. And, you know, if they shut down, if Lisbon shuts down the podcast, or Libsyn, not Lisbon, that's in Portugal. If Libsyn shuts down the podcast at any time for any reason, you're going to have to find us at commsolutionsmn.com. so that we can tell you where we're posting it, where we're putting them. If it comes down to nobody's going to host it, nobody's going to host our website, everybody that has any hookup to the internet is shutting us down for what we're saying, for bringing you the truth, we'll meet in a local park. I don't really care. We'll have a fireside chat every week. Because I'm not going to give up till I'm in the ground. So whether it's reparations or whether it's, Green New Deal or Green Step Cities, or whether it is putting in mixed-use development in your area where it doesn't belong, or complete streets, or whether it is, all sorts of debt, and debt levels increasing in your city with all the bonding, whether it's this, whether it's that. The only thing that's really going to get to change that is you standing up and doing something different. And they can't shut us down from doing that. At some point, who knows? Maybe we'll never win elections at some point because they'll figure out a way to rig the system. But until we have no options, we must explore every option we have. The problem isn't reparations, because like I said, there has been a history of racism and stuff in the United States, and we need to do what we can to help pull each other up by grab their arm, pull them up, give them a hand up, not a hand out. Take somebody under our wing, teach them how to do something, apprenticeships, mentorships, discipleship. But the second that we say, this government's job, they'll take care of it, we're done for. No, we have to stand up and we have to walk that road ourselves. And we have to show them the right way to do it. And by them, I mean government. I mean the people who are currently making our laws, the people who are currently screwing this thing up so bad. We have to do something about it. This is a real possibility. There may not be any conservative media at some point in the future. Because you have a Senate. You have a federal government now owned by people that want to add states, that want to pack the Supreme Court, that want to get rid of the religious freedom executive orders that were passed, that want to get rid of the abolishment of teaching critical theory. All of these things, all the progress we made, you have a group that is ready and willing to do exactly the opposite. And part of that is coming down on conservative media. That could be shows like ours. Obviously, it's the big shows. It's the Hannitys and the Becks and the Rushes and all of that. But it's going to trickle down. As they squeeze people out, all y'all are going to find other places to go. And eventually, it's going to trickle down to people like us. Because we have this need to be informed. We have this need to find people who are like-minded, because we're told that what we are is bad, that it's racist, that it's no good. We have to be reformed. We have to be deprogrammed. I will not be deprogrammed. No. This mind, this heart are pointed in one direction, and they will not be swayed. I urge you to have that same resoluteness of heart, to be stout of heart, to never give in, to never give up, and to give yourself a chance at freedom, a greater liberty than we have today. But to get there, We've got to work together. It's not Andrew. It's not me. It's not Ted Cruz. It's not President Trump. It's no one person. It takes a movement of people that are solidified in spirit and in purpose, moving in the same direction. So who's with me? You see, because if we give up before the end, we will surely fail. But if we continue every day to put on our boots, grab our shield, and go out there and meet this world head on, if we never give up and every day we purpose to move the ball further in the direction of liberty, we will see victories. All we're asking is for 20,000 of you who are like-minded to come and join us. That's it. That sounds like a big number, but that's about 2% of like-minded people here in this state. That we don't have that already kind of makes me sad. So, what can you do in the immediate future? Share this thing loud and proud while we still are able to put them out. You can do that by liking or subscribing and sharing. You got things that you want us to know about, you want to get involved and you don't know what to do, you get a hold of us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That is commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. And we'll be more than happy to help you out. We got to be in this for the long haul. This is not going to be a one and done solution. This is not going to be winning the next presidential election, winning the next gubernatorial election. This is going to take a concerted effort to build it from the ground up. So I urge you, come along. Come along for the ride because it's going to get exciting. Now, we wouldn't want to do it with anyone else other than you, our listeners, because we love you so much. And we're so thankful for all of the time that you spend listening to this podcast. Without you, we'd just be speaking to the air. But because of you, I know we can change this state. We love you, Minnesota, but now it's your turn to get to work.
If I get too caught up